let's get a little bit into Tyrese Haliburton, just because going into this game and all you heard was, number one, he has a calf strain, which was already concerning kind of going into the game. You know that the risk of making that calf strain worse, or the ultimate risk of what we saw with Kevin Durant, which would be a torn Achilles, right? So there's always that kind of in the back of your head, back of your mind. But from the end of Game 5, no matter what Tyrese has said, he's going to play in Game 6. It always kind of interests me, because they always say it's always up to the medical team to approve this. Yeah. Now, Shams reported that they did a strength test. Okay. I don't know what the strength test would be, besides him kind of moving around and seeing if he has pain, which he could obviously say, I don't have any pain right now. Right. So they always say, oh, well, if he wasn't healthy to play, they would never approve him to play, or they would never allow him to play. And that's not really true, right? We know that if you're a star player, you're going to play no matter what. You're not going to tell LeBron James not to play on a torn whatever he has, right? So I think it was always up to the player, and not so much up to the medical team. What do you think of that?
Yeah, unless it's like something egregious, right? Where it's like you cannot play and it's just like a no-brainer. But yeah, you're going to get like medical advice, right? You're going to, which I think it's smart. I think you can kind of clear the air if you're medically cleared. I feel like it's like more so if you're coming off an injury and you're out sometime. I think that's where you would probably take it more serious, or more, like, especially in the regular season, right? Like take it, as kind of gold. And so with this, I'm sure it's like, let's get that doctor clearance for like peace of mind, just kind of like from a mental kind of deal. But yeah, you're right. I mean, these guys, like NBA finals, late in the playoffs, you may as well not even get that advice, because if you're going to play regardless, and it's your body more than anyone, right? And so I feel that is interesting, though, that they kind of that was kind of floated out there. And I think he would have had to like be on a wheelchair to not play out there today. And so hey, he got through Game 6, it seems fine, and you can knock on wood, and he's got one left, win or lose, there's one left. And I just hope that whatever he's got going, that he's, as close to 70, 80, 90% as possible. And hopefully nothing worse happens, and he can go into an off season, whether it be in an amazing mood or not, somewhat healthy.
Yeah, no, you make a really, really good point about him. He hasn't been off for like a couple weeks, right? And then that leads to other things, right? Like if you haven't played the game, right, for 2 weeks, you've been off your feet, you haven't really gotten into cardio, you haven't been running up and down the court, and then all of a sudden you try to play. Everything's kind of stiff, and those are probably more of the risk factors, like KD being off, 3-4 weeks, and then coming back and playing his first game, right? So it's just a different breed. Now, He's been playing, right? So that is a positive that he's been playing. He's still in shape. His body's understanding where he should be in space on the court. So that's actually a really good point. And even though he has a pretty significant injury, but it's not like he's had a layoff of a couple weeks going into that Game 6 or going into a Game 7. I like that. That's a really good point on just saying like he's still fresh in that way, even though he has an acute injury.
Absolutely.
Now, the good thing I would say with obviously this game is that it was a blowout, and he was able to rest the whole fourth quarter. And that means he's going into, no matter what, he's going to go into treatment protocol right now for the next 72 hours until game 7, right? So the good thing is he's getting as much treatment as possible, and it didn't look like he aggravated it in Game 6. He looked pretty good on the court and only looked like he got better throughout the game. So those are definitely some positives kind of going into Game 7 for any Indiana fan or people thinking like, hey, he looked like a shell of himself and he hurt the team, which was the opposite. He definitely helped the team tonight.
Yeah, I think if it was early in the playoffs, it'd be tough because like there's just one of those injuries that are not going to just get better all of a sudden. Like he's going to just have to keep playing and playing and playing, and it could potentially get worse.
Yeah.
When it's like, hey, 2 more games and now 1 more game. We talked about that extra day, so they are once again going to have an extra day to get to Game 7. So all from both parties, they can kind of get healed up and get mentally ready for this. So. I guess the good news is he didn't re-aggravate it. He didn't have to play huge minutes tonight. If we would have looked at the stat sheets and said he played like a low 20s, we probably would have thought, oh man, he probably gave it a go, maybe first half, second half, and it just probably didn't pan out. But the good news is, got an extra day, like I said, and figure he'll be ready to roll Game 7. Oh, I think you're on mute, Doc.
Sorry. It was best case scenario for Indiana and worst case scenario for OKC, to be honest with you, right? So I think if I'm an Indiana player, I got the most confidence going into this Game 7. And I should be really worried is OKC. I know you go home, some home cooking, but just how you showed up for a Game 6 is just not how you do that in the finals. But we talked about this a little bit. It is similar to how that Denver series went, right?
Yeah.
And when they might go home, they went in Game 7. They beat them up pretty bad. So we'll see what happens in this Game 7.
Yeah, I mean, as you recall, that was the Aaron Gordon game. So they have some experience with it. I mean, you get home court advantage throughout the playoffs for this situation, right? Game 7 finals. I mean, you don't always expect for the game finals to go to 7, but you have it at home. But I don't know, man, like in my experiences with Game 7s, which I'll get into some stats here in a second before we jump to the next topic, but it just seems Game 7 understandably is like a little different than Game 7s of other series throughout the playoffs. I don't know. I see that there's like often more nerves, which is understandable. You don't see like the best out of teams always because I guess from an offensive standpoint, because every single possession is key. It's not, you cannot take a possession off, right? This is the last possessions you're going to have in the season. And so they tend to be a little bit more low scoring. The ones that I could think of, I think you guys know that the last one, it was very memorable when it was Golden State and Cleveland in 2016. That's when Cleveland came back down 3-1 to win the series. It was a game in the 80s or what have you, right? It was a slugfest. And Kyrie hit the big shot at the end. LeBron had the big block, of course. And so, before that, San Antonio and Miami played a couple years before that. Us Laker fans recall, 15 years ago now, Lakers versus Boston.
That was like a 73-69 or something like that.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, it was just low scoring. And so that being said, it gets dangerous, even though I think OKC will have the advantage, they'll be favored and all that good stuff. Nothing different from Indiana, right? Or what Indiana's used to. So I did say this is the 20th Game 7 of the finals ever. So the home teams are 15-4. So out of the 19 games, we have to favor the home team 15-4. But the very last Game 7, the road team won. So it's definitely possible. And it isn't a very veteran type of team, with OKC, as we alluded to many times. And so, it's going to be tense. I know the Thunder crowd's going to be going bonkers, but if it's close, getting into the third, fourth, you're going to be able to sense it. And so, hey, Indiana, man, you gotta, I mean, you do have a lot to lose, but you got to think of it as like, man, if you would have told us coming into the season or coming into the playoffs that we would be in a Game 7 in the NBA finals, sign me up all day. And I'm sure Thunder would have thought the same thing too. Right. But yeah, man. So that's kind of what, a little bit of statistics there, which really won't mean a damn thing on Sunday, but it just goes to show the home team usually does have the advantage.
Yeah, for sure.